to answer is because what defines a junior engineer depends on which company you're talking to, or frankly, which person you're talking to. In my mind, a junior engineer is somebody who's just starting out and who doesn't have anybody under them, which would make them a senior engineer. But different companies use different definitions. At some companies, it's a matter of how long you've been programming. At some companies, they say we don't hire junior engineers, but they'll still hire people out of college and code boot camps. They just say you're a senior engineer. It's kind of all a little fuzzy. But generally speaking, most people that graduate from Lambda School, you're going into your first engineering job. You're not going to have people underneath you. It's safe to call that a junior engineer. And so a lot of people wondered, when I show up on day one, what is that actually going to be like? Am I, shipping code to the production code base in the first 30 minutes? And the reality is that most companies have a pretty long process that they'll ease you in over. So, for example, if you go work at Facebook, they have something they call a boot camp that I'm not sure how many weeks it is. I want to say it's 4 weeks. But no engineer, no matter how experienced, ever touches a line of code until they go through Facebook's internal boot camp. Of course, that's not a code boot camp the way you normally think of it. That's just Facebook trying to get you ramped up to speed with how Facebook operates. And most have something vaguely similar. Even after the interview process, there's not a really great understanding of where you are as an engineer. There's still a lot of things you need to understand before you're ready to ship production code. So there's usually a little bit of ramp up. How long that is depends on the company. So now let's talk a little bit about what surprises most engineers when they show up on day one. You finally got the job, you show up, you have the day of onboarding where you give your payroll and benefits information and you work out all the minutia. Now you're at your desk, you're ready to write code. What is that experience usually like? The first thing that we see from most people is a shock at the code base. We try to have you working on big code bases as much as we can within Lambda School, but almost no matter what company you go to, there are probably hundreds of thousands of lines of code, if not millions of lines of code, and it's this big convoluted application that you don't understand and you've never dealt with. The first and one of the most difficult things a junior engineer has to do is begin to understand what does what within that code base. Depending on how well it's been written, depending on what languages and framework it's written in, it might be totally different than what you're used to. And that's just something that it's part of life. And if you're a senior engineer joining a new company, you'll see different pieces of code in different folders on your text editor, and you won't know what all of it does. That's totally normal.